The reason that we all would recommend you get the COVID-19 vaccine is because it's kind of a miracle of modern medicine, and it protects you from getting COVID-19 if you do not already have it. Both the Pfizer and Moderna trials show that it has 95% effectiveness from preventing you from getting COVID-19, which is amazing. I don't think there's ever been a vaccine with a number that high. So if you're concerned about the vaccine being too new, first of all, I want to say I understand your concern because I had the same exact one. And before I did my research, I had the very human reaction, which is, I'm not going to get that vaccine. It's way too new. I mean, I totally get that. Having gone and done the research myself, I was the first one in line at my hospital to get this vaccine. It is new in terms of we've never had a COVID-19 vaccine, but the technology, which is using an mRNA protein, which is messenger RNA, meaning it cannot do anything except send a message. It cannot infect you with the virus. It cannot make you sick. That technology has been around for greater than 30 years. So this technology is not new at all. They've been using it for decades. And the second thing I would say is that the only reason this feels rushed is because it was an emergency use authorization. And that's because, at least in my lifetime, I'm 40 years old. We've never had a worldwide pandemic where people in every single country, whether it's a first world or third world country, were dying in record numbers or suffering in record numbers. And the emergency use came from the fact that everyone was desperate, plus a ton of money putting into developing and doing this vaccine, but no corners were cut. The reason it feels rushed is because everybody got their stuff together and pooled all their resources to push this through safely through every part of the trial to get this out as fast as possible because people are dying and we need help. Yeah, the only thing I would add, if you have genuine concerns that this was rushed through, is I can send you the literature and show you every phase of the trial that they followed. The Pfizer trial followed 41,000 people since July. So that's when these trials started. And they followed them for up to 2 months after they received the vaccine, gathered all the information, presented it, and every single requirement that has ever been fulfilled for previous vaccines was fulfilled for this one. I think the reason it feels rushed to you and to all of us is because we've never seen people pool their resources and finances and scientific resources together to get something done so quickly, but no corners were cut. And I can send a link to anyone who wants to read it. So an mRNA vaccine, if you want to get nerdy with me, is actually really cool because it's a snapshot of how the virus attacks the body. So the best analogy I have is that this is like walking into the police station, showing a picture of a mugshot of a person and saying, if you see this guy, do not let him in. So all the mRNA vaccine is doing is showing a snapshot picture of the COVID-19 vaccine to your body and saying, if you see this protein, do not let them in, and your immune system will take care of the rest. So just like a picture cannot actually cause you harm, a picture of COVID-19, which is what this vaccine is, cannot cause your body harm or infect you with the vaccine. The second question, were there embryonic or fetal stem cells? No. That is used in the scientific community for vaccines in the past, but 100% from the beginning, the development, distribution, and testing of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines used no embryonic or fetal stem cells because that was one of their principles from the very beginning, because they knew that would be an issue for some people. So this is not embryonic or fetal stem cells in this vaccine at all. So an mRNA vaccine cannot affect your DNA. It is literally just a picture that it's showing to the rest of your body. So only your immune system cares about the mRNA protein in this vaccine. It cannot alter your DNA. It's physically impossible. Going back to my analogy, if you had a mugshot of someone and I showed you a picture of a most wanted person, that picture could not cause you harm, right? It's just a picture. So this mRNA protein cannot affect the DNA of your cells at all. It intrinsically does not have that capability. It can't even mutate to have that capability. There's just no way scientifically that this can alter your DNA. If it's okay, I'll get a little personal with y'all. I mentioned in another clip that you may have seen that I'm 40 years old. I have a 1-year-old. I would like another child. So I am right in the pocket of someone who's very concerned about infertility because my age already predisposes me to not being the most fertile myrtle on the planet. So, so just to let you know, that was my concern as well. And I 100% got both doses of the vaccine. I received my second dose on January 4th, and the day we're recording this video is January 11th, and I'm fine. The second thing that I'd like to share with you is that there is no proof, there's not even a suspicion that this vaccine could in any way cause infertility. Just like you get the flu vaccine, or even as a child you received MMR and measles and all the vaccines that we've received have never been tied to infertility. And I'd like to reassure you that the COVID-19 vaccine has even less vaccine contents and constituents in it. So it's even less likely to cause a reaction or infertility issue than any other vaccine you've taken in your entire life. The problem with trials in their current state is that we don't test on pregnant women and we don't test on people trying to get pregnant, but that's not a COVID-19 vaccine problem. That's just a general testing problem because people don't want to test on pregnant women. I spoke to my personal OB. I also spoke to all of my friends that are OBs in the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, also called ACOG. And they personally, even if they are of childbearing age or wanting to get pregnant or are even pregnant already, are also taking the vaccine. So I would encourage you to talk to your own doctor. You know, listening to me on a video is no substitution for your doctor that knows you and knows your health issues. But I have not come across one person who has genuine infertility issues related to this vaccine in the medical community. If you're considering having a child, my husband and I were actually in the process of trying to conceive our second child. When we had the discussion about whether I should take the vaccine, what we have seen about the dangers of COVID on a pregnancy and on a child and on a fetus are astronomical compared to any concerns we would have had the vaccine. So I would say to you, if you want to have children, after speaking with your own personal physician, it's actually more important that you get the vaccine, because if you got coronavirus in the early stage of a pregnancy and even later, it's very, very dangerous for you and baby. And getting COVID in the first trimester has been associated with fetal death. So it's actually more important to protect yourself and your potential child from COVID than most people. A patient at 36 weeks, and she got COVID. And there's so much that we can't give treatment wise because we have to protect the baby. Right. And it made it very difficult to treat her. And she was in the ICU for 2 weeks on a BiPAP, you know, barely being able to breathe. Ultimately, she survived and we're so thankful, and the baby was fine. But getting COVID for a pregnant woman is very, very dangerous because it makes the treatment so tricky. Yeah. Side effects for the COVID vaccine have honestly been pretty on par with every other vaccine. You can get redness and swelling and itching at the injection site. You could even have a little viral-like illness where you have fatigue, chills, fever. All of that is proof that your immune system is working, by the way. That's just your immune system getting ready for a fight. You know, should COVID ever come around these parts, your immune system knows what to do. So that's not a reaction. That's not an allergic reaction. That's an expected part of getting a vaccine. I know there's been some concerns about anaphylaxis and allergies, again, going hand in hand with fears that this is a new vaccine. I think that there's been 4 or 5 serious reactions per million, which makes this one of the safest vaccines we have ever had. The flu vaccine has more side effects than the COVID vaccine in terms of serious reactions. The COVID vaccine also has no preservatives in it. So if you've ever had an allergic reaction to a previous vaccine, it may have been an allergic reaction to something that was a preservative, right? So this makes it one of the best tolerated, safest vaccines. If you have ever had a serious allergic reaction to a vaccine before, yes, you are at higher risk for having an allergic reaction to this vaccine, and you should definitely speak with your physician if you decide to take it and have an EpiPen on hand, all of those things. If you've never had a life-threatening reaction to a vaccine, there is no reason to suspect that you would have one to this vaccine.
Okay.
We've got 80 and 90-year-olds taking it, 100-year-olds taking it, barely complaining of a headache or a sore arm. I was a little bit tired the day after my second dose. I have other friends who had no symptoms at all, and I have other friends who had a little bit more than I did, but they all went away within 1 to 2 days. Anyone with a chronic illness like lupus or MS, especially if you're on immunosuppressants, personally, not as your physician, but as a doctor, I think it's more important for you to get the vaccine because you could get potentially very ill if you got coronavirus. So I would definitely talk with your allergist or immunologist to make sure it's safe. Again, I would stress if you've never had a reaction to a vaccine before, there's no reason to expect that you would have a reaction to this one. But yes, anybody who's on immunosuppressants for something like lupus or MS, I would highly recommend that you do get vaccinated because it's even more important to protect yourself from COVID-19. I looked up the Bell's palsy video. I would, and this is coming from a place of love and understanding because I'm just as prone to seeing these videos and things on Facebook and being like, is that true? But I would caution anyone, please always evaluate your sources when you see something like this. There is so much misinformation out there and it's not helping. And everyone knows anyone can make a video or a meme, and half the time people don't question the source behind it. So please always evaluate your source. I'll leave that there. But the second thing is that lady's not even a nurse. I mean, I went to a website that debunked it, with a quick Google search. There's no record of her even having a license to practice medicine in that state as a nurse. So I don't know what people's intentions are. You could wake up with Bell's palsy tomorrow. Anyone can get Bell's palsy at any time, depending on their genetic makeup and their immune system and whether they've been sick recently, because it's usually a reaction to a virus. But that doesn't mean you're not going to go to sleep tonight, right? Mm-hmm. So I would take all of those kind of videos with a grain of salt. But there's been no documented, proven reaction of Bell's palsy to this vaccine. Standpoint, there is no bioluminescence. Bioluminescence isn't even used in vaccines. It's used for antibody research and studies. So it doesn't even play a role in vaccine administration. So there's no microchip, there's no bioluminescence, there's not even, I can't even think of a sane reason why people would want to track us when they already have our information and social security number and credit card number and all of that anyway. So I would really put those concerns to rest about this vaccine. No one's trying to track you, we're just trying to save lives. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what is your goal? If you're working in healthcare, if you're working with high-risk patients, is your goal to do everything that you can to protect the people around you, whether you love them because they're your work family, you're your patient, or the family you're going home to? Getting this vaccine is not just about you. It's not just about me. It's not just about what I want, what I need, what I think. It's about what is my duty to protect the people around me. And the more people that get this vaccine, the faster this pandemic ends, the less people die, the less people suffer. So ultimately, I think it's a question of civic and moral responsibility to get the vaccine. If you have genuine questions and concerns, that's what we're here to talk to you about. But as far as choosing to get it or not, I think you have to evaluate what are your values and are you here to help to be part of the solution or not. And if you don't want to get the vaccine, I would encourage you to seek I would encourage you to seek a job outside of healthcare, because in healthcare, I think we have a responsibility to do everything that we can to protect our patients, and getting this vaccine is part of that. That's the thing is, I also want to encourage y'all that people are watching you. People are watching you to see what you do. And when you do what I believe to be the right thing and get the vaccine, you're also going to encourage the family and friends around you to do the same thing. And this is how we stop the pandemic. So talk to people that you trust. If I'm a voice that you trust, feel free to reach out to me on social media. I think we are going to get to a point where we can take off the masks. Maybe not in hospitals. I think masks may be here to stay in hospitals, which maybe it should have always been that way. I don't know. But about 7 to 10 days after you receive your second dose, you have 95% immunity, and you have it for several months. And I would also like to mention that the immunity that you get from the vaccine is astronomically stronger than from getting COVID. So if you've had COVID, you still need to get the vaccine, because your immunity that you get from having and recovering from COVID is not nearly as strong and does not last nearly as long. So if once we get to hopefully the place where 80% or more of the population have had the vaccine, I do think we can start getting to the point where we can maybe take masks off. The problem with that is that if you get the vaccine today and you have COVID already before getting the vaccine, it does not stop you from still passing it on to people. So that's the reason we can't take our masks off just yet. But I think that day is coming if we can just get herd immunity through the vaccine. If you are getting the opportunity to get the vaccine now, there's so many people that are jealous of you and that would want your spot. My husband is under 70. He's not in the high risk category. And I don't know when I'm going to be able to get a shot for him. And I have no special hookup for him, because there are no special hookups being given for this vaccine. Trust me, I've tried. So if you have the opportunity to get the vaccine, I would not wait. First of all, we already talked about, responsibility to your patients, but also you get the joy and relief of getting to go home after working at the Glen all day and knowing that you're not going to be the reason your family gets sick. You have to think about your family every day that you go to work and come home. You could be the reason that your family gets COVID. And if your family has already had COVID, they can still get it again. The only way to protect yourself and others is to go ahead and get the vaccine. Also, the first doses of the vaccine were administered, December 14th, I think, in the United States. I was lucky enough to be on that first day. So you have people that you can look at to see how we're doing. We're fine. I got my first dose December 14th. I got my second dose January 4th. Today's January 11th. And other than a day or two of a sore arm and feeling tired, I'm fine. So there's no reason to watch and wait to see how your friends are doing right now. Like, you already have people in your community right here in Shreveport, Louisiana, that can tell you how we're doing. And who knows when you're going to get the opportunity again. So you're very lucky. This is a very special opportunity that you get to get the vaccine months earlier than you normally would have, just because you work in healthcare. And again, we're on the front lines in healthcare. You're on the front lines at the Glen. So if the front line isn't vaccinated, the whole system kind of falls apart. So we've all got to do our part. So the Moderna vaccine, actually their trial was even bigger than the Pfizer vaccine. So they even have more data just in terms of number of participants. Also, the racial diversity mix in the Moderna vaccine was awesome. I mean, every single race that's present in the United States was involved in the Moderna vaccine in great numbers, like almost equal numbers. So they studied everything. I'm actually very impressed with the Moderna vaccine trial and their results. So if you've ever had a vaccine, a flu shot or not, it's very simple. It's a very small syringe. You barely feel the needle. And it does go in the arm. So it's an intramuscular injection, IM injection. And it's the same protocol as any vaccine or shot that you've received before. It hurts way less than a Rocephin or a Celestone shot when you go to urgent care and get those for your bronchitis and sinusitis days. It hurts way less than that because the needle's much smaller. So they will cleanse, your area with rubbing alcohol, and then you'll feel a small prick, and they'll administer the vaccine. You may have a little bit of swelling at the site, which is completely normal. I personally took some leave right after the shot, and I feel like a lot of that was minimized right away. And I worked the rest of the day. We got our shots at 11 a.m. and I still worked till 7 p.m. It was fine. So that's it. It's just a simple shot. You may have a little bleeding. They'll put a Band-Aid, but it's a very quick and easy. When you get it, you're going to say, oh, that was it. Like, it's going to seem very anticlimactic. That's how not a big a deal it is. I was actually expecting more. I was like, that didn't hurt at all. And then 28 days later with the Moderna vaccine, you get your second dose. It is very important for you to get your second dose because that's what takes you from like 52% or less immunity up to 95% once you get the second dose. About 7 to 10 days after your second dose, your antibodies or your titers are going to be as high as they've been. So that's when you achieve maximum protection. And yeah, that's about it. That's the protocol. And the Moderna vaccine has been very well tolerated. I think they had almost double the participants. And I can send the link to Lydia if anybody wants this information. I have 2 or 3 links that are very easy to read and have everything that you could want to know about the vaccine and how it was developed. And the Moderna trials were awesome. So we're very lucky to get that as well. Makes these vaccines incredibly safe and well tolerated is that the mRNA protein, once your body gets the message that the protein's trying to give you, the protein degrades. So this vaccine is gone, done, completely eliminated from your body in 7 days. Around and cause, even if it did have a tracker attached to it, it would be gone in 7 days because that's the amount of time it takes for this mRNA to degrade. So it's very, very safe. And when people ask you these questions and you can say, well, the mRNA is gone in 7 days, silly, be an information warrior. Please, we need all the help we can get. Just people doing their part to get the vaccine we're all so tired, and this disease is horrible. And I'm sure y'all have seen some horrible cases at the Glen of people that you have taken care of for years who have lost their lives way before they would have without getting coronavirus. So I think it's important for us to remember what we're fighting here. We're fighting a horrible disease that even if people survive, they suffer for a long time, and it's preventable. And we have this amazing weapon to use in this fight, and we should all pick it up and use it because this is one of the most horrible things I've ever seen. And it's even worse in the hospital, but I'm sure y'all have seen some of it at the Glen too. It's very, very sad. And I'm sure people want to come visit their family again. And, this is all part of that, getting to that moment.